Alrighty, yo, what is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Mr. DDG94 here. Back with reaction video. Today, we're gonna react to what happened to Xbox and PlayStation's greatest hits. Companies got greedy. That's what happened. Xbox and PlayStation got greedy. That's what happened. That's why we don't get greatest hits no more. That's why after a year or two, we don't get the greatest hits collection no more, where the game is like cheaper and then it's like the complete version of the game. Remember back in those days? Remember when NBA Street Volume 2 came out and then a year later it was in the greatest hit section and it was $20 and it was probably like more polished and more updated and it felt a little bit more different from from the original game you bought? Yeah, that would be that. Same thing with Grand Theft Auto. A year later, it's in the greatest hits bins. It's been repolished, repackaged, and it's only $20. It went from $49.99 to just $19.99. And they give you all the bells and whistles and all the fixes and patches that they made with the game. They don't do that no more.
Remember that time you went to Best Buy, Target, GameStop, Walmart, or wherever else with a few dollars and the goal of finding something new to play? A game you knew was a banger that wouldn't break the bank. You're just lost in the game section and all of a sudden you see a game you wanted. Wow, $20? Maybe less. But man, why is this case so ugly?
Man, them shits would be $10, $15, $20, you name it, bro. Shit, sometimes you can catch them for $5. I remember going to Kmart, and this is when I had my GameCube at the time, because my PlayStation had died on me, so I had the GameCube at the time. I ain't gonna lie, Kmart was going crazy with the greatest hits. I don't know what I think they called them Nintendo Platinum hits or Nintendo greatest hits. Like, they had fucking Day of Reckoning 1 and 2, NBA Street Volume 2, NBA Street, the OG NBA Street, Street Hoops, goddamn, a bunch of Mario games, a bunch of Sonic games. All of them was sitting there for $5. I said, Mom, can I have all these, please? And even Tony Hawk American Wasteland was in that $5. It wasn't $5. It was $10 actually. That was the more expensive one. So I had got both Day of Reckonings, NBA Street Volume 2, the OG NBA Street, fucking what was it called? I think it's called Super Mario Sunshine. I believe that's what it's called. Yeah, and Tony Hawk American Wasteland, and Need for Speed Underground 2. All them shits was $5. My mama went crazy for me. I was like, yeah, I got all the games. Y'all can't tell me shit. I'm about to be playing all the games all weekend, my nigga. Fuck you mean. Yeah, I was happy as hell, bruh. I had all the games.
You just have to remember this exact phenomenon when you were introduced to the world of Xbox Platinum hits, Nintendo Selects, PlayStation Greatest Hits, or even Sega All-Stars. This little sub-series of game releases was a hero to anyone on a budget. It used to be heaven finding one of these used on top of already being cheaper than their mainline counterparts. At least when that used copy actually worked. But there was a time when I sat back, started up my PS5 and thought, those used to be a thing. What happened to them? Isn't it so funny that there's multiple generations that have no ties to seeing those ugly covers? So today, let's take a look back and appreciate these wallet savers, and I'll explain exactly how they started and where they went.
This program was brought to you by the following sponsors.
As a kid, my brainless self once looked at this branding and really wondered, what exactly was the difference between it and the normal counterparts? Was there some group of players voting these games as the best in the console's library? I know, stupid.
Nah, these were probably just like the best sellers at the time. And then the good thing though is too, the developers would actually go back in and update them. like I said, for Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, they updated and polished a lot of that game if you get the greatest hits edition. Because I remember, I think my brother stole my original copy. So I ended up getting the greatest hits copy later on when I got another PlayStation 2. And like, yeah, I had all the games.
Each of these variations had the same deal, be it Microsoft's Platinum Hits, Nintendo's Player's Choice, Sega All-Stars, or Sony's Greatest Hits. They were all the same thing, re-releases of top-selling titles sold at a lower price point. It all started in 1996 when Nintendo was darn near solely ruling the entire gaming world with the Super Nintendo and Game Boy. To keep their hot sellers, well, hot, they'd introduced the world to a new branding with the Player's Choice seal. This gold mark showed that whatever game branded with it had sold over 1 million copies and would keep with Nintendo going into the 64 era. But back then, it didn't come with some discount like we remember from generations later. Nah, the price cuts introduced by being part of this new line wouldn't show up until 1997.
Hey, plumber boy, mustache man, your worst nightmare has arrived. Pack up your stuff. I got a little surprise for you here. Check it out.
When Sony would introduce the world to the PlayStation hits with NHL Face-Off, NFL Game Day, Warhawk, Battle Arena Teshinden, and Twisted Metal. For Sony, the game had to be out for a year and have sold 150,000 copies. But that minimum would change as time went on, with 400,000 copies needing to be sold for PlayStation 2 and 9 months of shelf life. Anyways, Sony would bring in the idea to sell these hits at a discount, usually around the $20 mark and sometimes way less if you count the multi-game packs that contain multiple games at the same point.
$19.99 for PlayStation's greatest hits is a really good deal.
Sony just knew they had gold on their hands, as they'd be the trailblazers and the ones who understood that there was so much money to be made with the greatest hits brand. They knew all their first party games were bound to reach their requirements, meaning whoever didn't buy at release price would be more than tempted to purchase at a way lower one. And then they started dropping greatest hits editions of games that had sequels coming out, maximizing profits with old titles. They'd also introduced the premise of some greatest hits coming with some kind of bonus, which could come in the form of a soundtrack CD, new box art, a demo for a new game, and new game patches that could range from bug fixes and added characters and levels to adding vibration or analog support. This was seen with games like Heavy Rain, Virtua Fighter 4, Silent Hill 2, Spyro Year of the Dragon, Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3, Devil May Cry 3, and Midnight Club 3. The others would follow behind this new tactic, with Sega introducing its Sega All-Stars budget branding for the Dreamcast, Microsoft its Platinum Hits for Xbox and the 360, and finally, Nintendo and its Player's Choice for the GameCube and Game Boy Advance, which would become Nintendo Selects in the Wii and Wii U eras.
Buy the Nintendo GameCube for only $149.95 and receive The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. Go ahead, take it. And a playable bonus disc. Free.
This branding was essential for a 2000s kid. We didn't care about a box, we didn't know the originals would be more valuable in the future, and honestly, a lot of us didn't even know what the difference was between the two. We just saw a cheaper version of a great game that we could actually afford. There were a few feelings like walking into the store and seeing Halo, Ratchet & Clank, or Tony Hawk for $20 or less, without having to go out of your way to hunt down or wait for a used copy that worked. It was a simpler time when such things weren't just luxury and appreciated, but necessary. Like I said, Sony cracked the code with pairing discounts on top of the greatest hits branding, allowing companies to make more money while working on newer projects. But honestly, screw the companies. Those brands didn't just let us afford the games, but let us get hands on updated versions of said games, or get our hands on the games at all. In a world before digital offerings and before everything went digital, there was a very real chance that popular games could go straight up MIA, meaning that down the line, you may never find the game at a decent price, if at all. You see the remnants of that in games that are now hidden gems like the GOAT, God Hand, or Killer 7. But these kept that from being the case with titles that proved their mettle. Now, if you heard what I said there, then you probably know exactly what killed off this obsolete branding, right? Same thing as everything else, the internet. Each of these companies, other than Sega, who died in the early console realm, would continue to support their respective greatest hits brands for years. However, each of them would put an end to it come the 2010s, with Nintendo's finale being on the Wii U and 3DS, Sony on the PlayStation 4, and Microsoft on the Xbox One. See, by this time, each of the industry giants had found their footing in the online world, with digital sales booming. Many players were finally groomed into simply owning games without needing physical media anymore. To me, this was helped by Steam, the 360, PS3, and Wii era, introducing the world to download-only titles such as Castle Crashers, Mega Man 9, and the other games from this netware period. The introduction of subscription services such as PlayStation Network and Xbox Gold also helped here, as they both came with downloadable games which helped ease many into downloading full games to.
Basically, when Xbox dropped that Game Pass on the Xbox One, yeah, it was a done dollar for the greatest hits collections. It was over for that, because at that point it was like they just found ways to make discounts. Yeah, especially when Xbox dropped that Game Pass, I knew it was over.
Their consoles. Physical media wasn't needed so much anymore, especially with those discounts beginning to simply pop up on online storefronts. And you know what else helped phase these out? When companies found ways to resell these games at a full price instead of a discount. Yeah, I mean around the period when, especially Sony, found out they could quote-unquote remaster everything instead of re-releasing.
Yep, remasters that are really often criticized for being
full price with
remasters was probably the worst thing to ever happen to the video game industry, bro. Remasters are probably the worst thing to happen. They are good at times. It could work if you sold the game for cheaper. But no, the greed has gotten out of hand with these companies. And now all they want to do is remaster. I don't know how many times they done remastered Last of Us. I don't know how many times Sony has remastered Last of Us. Didn't they remaster it last year? For no apparent reason. They just remastered it last year for no apparent reason. I don't know what Sony be on, but Sony on that bullshit. That's why I don't got no PlayStation, because I'm lying like a motherfucker. I got a PlayStation 3 and a PlayStation 4 staring at me right now. Like nigga, what? We pussy. So we pussy to you. I ain't say that, big bro. Calm down. Nigga think we pussy. We standing right here, cuz. What you want to do? I ain't mean it. Calm down. But anyway, so like I ain't get a PS5. I decided to get the little Xbox S and shit because it was the cheaper option at the time. But like, my nigga, remastered shit is out of control, bro. Especially with Sony.
Changes. Sometimes not even a decade after the original release. Like I said, Sony has become infamous for this cash grab strategy, and it's a popular source to point the finger of the greatest hits killer. Fast forward to now, and yeah, we just don't need greatest hits, platinum hits, or any more hits, because it's all obsolete. Streaming and digital sales made the entire program pointless, especially with there being no real point to physical games anymore since they're all just digital keys. I threw up a little bit saying that. Back then, those red PS2 labels or silver Xbox Platinum hits were a genius move. Games hit big sales numbers, Sony and Microsoft reprint them cheap, slapped on a special branding, and stores got fresh stock to fill those budget bins. This was needed in a physical only world. Reprints kept supply high, prices low, and everyone could grab GTA San Andreas or Halo without waiting for a used copy or paying full price forever. But digital changed everything. When PS4 and Xbox One hit, there was no more need to print extra copies to keep shelves stocked, as games stay available forever on PSN or the Xbox store. If you abuse the watch list function like me, you'll notice that discounts happen constantly both there and via Amazon, so a permanent greatest hits brand isn't required anymore. Especially in a world when no one is relying on the in-person surprise. First party stuff drops to like $20 or $30 regularly without needing a new label. As with everything else in the world, convenience won. We don't have to look for that specific red label at the mall anymore. However, that ritual is what we really miss. Walking into EB Games, seeing a wall of greatest hits, feeling like you scored a deal on a classic, it's all a part of that brand of nostalgia that you can still feel. And back then, it was like a badge of honor if you ignored how ugly it made those game covers. Just looking at them is strong enough to take you back. Psychologically, it's all about that shift from event-driven buying to instant access. Our brains love the dopamine of the find versus just opening tabs and adding to cart these days, even if that comes with its own brand of benefits, like finding deals on games you never would find in person. We just don't need greatest hits anymore. But man, it felt good when we did. Listen, do you miss the greatest hits era? Is there any game under the brand that hits different for you? I'd love to hear about all that and anything else that resonated with you in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and I hope I see you in the next one. Take care.
Alrighty, man. That's just gonna about do it for this one, man. Most definitely, man. Xbox, GameCube, and PlayStation 2 greatest hits will forever be goated. Finding that game that your friend probably took from you, or it got scratched up, or fucking discombusted when your PlayStation, when your original console fucked up and stopped working, which I don't understand how that happened. Well, it was common with the PlayStation 2s, but for a GameCube and an Xbox, I ain't never heard nobody say, oh, my shit just stopped working one day. I heard plenty of people talk about how their PlayStation 2 stopped working, but not no Xbox or no GameCube. The motherfucker's still going to this day. So yeah. Yeah, man. It's there'll never be another like that, man. That's why I say, man, the Xbox, GameCube, and PlayStation 2 era is the best era, bro, because y'all just don't understand. All of y'all little niggas that was not even old enough to play PlayStation 2 games, or wasn't old enough to play or probably was barely old enough to play Xbox 360 games, and the PS4 is your first like true console era that you enjoyed. Y'all gotta understand, bro, we come from a different era, bro, where the companies actually cared, where games were actually had to be fully completed. They had to be game tested and completed, and they took a lot of time to come out, but when they came out, the motherfuckers hit. I come from a different era, bro. Y'all don't understand. Y'all get fucked over and robbed every fucking day in the modern day era of gaming. Back then, we didn't have these problems. Niggas actually cared about what they put out. Niggas actually didn't, and niggas actually cared about they rep out here in these streets, bro. Y'all don't realize these companies actually cared about they rep out here in these streets. EA used to care at one point in time. EA used to drop classics. They don't drop them shits no more. There was a point in time where 2K actually cared about, and went into full detail with a body work with their games, bruh. There was a point in time where wrestling games was like Heat. Every year they was dropping Heat. Well, up until like 2008. But you get what I'm trying to say. But yeah, man. That just gonna about do it for this one, man. I just come from that era, bro, where I witnessed greatness, bro. And y'all never get that back today, bro. Gaming just ain't what it used to be, bro. It is what it is, though. But I'll let y'all little niggas have it, though. Y'all little niggas that think, nah, bro, PlayStation 4 era is the best, bro. Y'all gotta get over that, bro. Y'all graphics was ass. The graphics weren't ass. Trust me and believe me. They're not as good as graphics are today, yes, but them graphics wasn't ass, bro. Stop it. They just don't compare to today. Okay, We understand that. We understand from a graphical standpoint, but nigga, the quality and the amount of hit and the amount of bangers, the amount of games that we had at our disposal at the era, in that era, could never be matched. Y'all barely get games from these companies today. They charging y'all more for the console, and then all the games that do come out, they try to figure out how they could charge you more for it. Come on, chief. Y'all young ass niggas talking crazy, but I digress though. But anyway, so I just gonna about do it for this while I see y'all the next video too.